Hey, what's up everybody, this is Muth24, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the third of the 3-in-1 volumes of the Neon Genesis Evangelion manga. We have here on the front, Asuka and Unit 2, which I think makes for really cool artwork, not just because I like the artwork of this manga adaptation in general, but because it's such a stark contrast there with the red against sort of grayish-blue backdrop. On the side we have, much like with the previous volumes, the continuation of the Evangelion title here up on the top. It's a little bit faint here because it's sort of this pale orange color against the red, but it's definitely there. You have the numbers of the volumes compiled here, which are 7, 8, and 9, and then the sort of stripe along the spine, and a picture of Zeruiel there on the bottom. We have some more cool artwork here in the splash color pages, with Eva Unit 1 going berserk there, Masato, Kaji. We have artwork of Asuka and Kaoru, and then the old Gahern / early Nerve team. And then this is one of the, I think, the coolest pieces of artwork in here, and I'll get more into this in a minute here. But this is actually Kaji from when he was younger, and this is one thing that they did in the manga adaptation that I actually really wish they would have done in the anime, and really wish they would have done in the new films that they didn't, and I don't think they will, simply because there's so much they have to finish up in 4.0, but, or final, or whatever it's going to be called, the last rebuild film. Anyways, this story picks up where the last volume left off, obviously, and it kind of slows things down to hone in on a very specific point in the Evangelion story. That being basically everything after the Bardiel fight, through Zeruiel, and into the introduction of Kaoru. He is introduced in this volume during the later chapters, but for those who know the anime pretty well, and know the rebuild films even, the whole Zeruiel bit, the part with Shinji, sort of defying orders and going against what his dad asks him to do, and saying he's going to quit being an Eva pilot, and then has to jump back into it to save everyone at Nerve because Zeruiel is one of the most powerful angels and almost breaches the Geofront. That's basically what this volume is all about, and that's personally my favorite part of the Evangelion story, is that specific little chapter there. Obviously, it's not such a little chapter in this version, considering how thick this volume is, but it's a very specific point in the story. I think that's more the point I was trying to make, is that as much as I love Evangelion, as much as it's sort of my... it's not just my favorite anime, but it's one of my favorite just stories and any sort of medium of entertainment of all time. That is probably my single favorite portion of that story, is the whole Zeruiel fight, the whole Eva Unit 1 going berserk, etc., etc. So you have a lot of similarities between the anime and the manga here in that part of the story. The way that Kaoru is introduced is a little bit different in this story. There are implications in the anime that he is sort of an alternate version of what Rei is. In the anime, we basically are told that Rei is a human clone with angel DNA embedded in her. She's some sort of clone of Yui that Gendo tried to make to sort of satisfy his need for the companion, but also a child that would listen to him and do what he wanted to, and also sort of his link to the... what is it called? The gate. I can't think of the name of it. They call it the Key of Nebuchadnezzar in the new films, but the door of Gauf or Goof. That's what it's called in the anime. But sort of his link to all this weird religious symbolism and sort of science fiction-y elements that are going on behind the scenes. Not that Evangelion isn't science fiction-y enough, as is with giant pseudo mecha, but that there's this whole, sort of spiritual, science-y theme going on in the background. The whole human instrumentality project, basically, is what Rei is designed for in the anime. And obviously she's got her own character development beyond that, but that's sort of the implication of what we get in the anime of what she's supposed to be for. Then Kaoru comes into the picture, and we don't really ever get a clear-cut answer with him in the anime, because he's only in there for a couple of episodes. He's there to basically be the angel of love, and that's what we get of him. Is that the anime sort of paints it that he is an angel taking on a human form, so that is something that Shinji and everyone else recognizes, is comfortable with, because he doesn't use any sort of direct combat methods like the other angels do. He, kind of hijacks Unit 2 in the anime at one point, but that's about it. He's more about going through things a different way than all the other angels were. He's not going to just blow things up and go straight down the indeterminate dogma to try and get at the object that every other angel has been going for. He goes about things a very different way. In this version of the story, they sort of imply that he is the opposite of what Rei was, where like Rei was a clone of a human with angel DNA, that Kaoru is more angel with some human DNA embedded in him, and that he is like a product of Seele to try and keep tabs on Gendo and all of his goings-on within Nerve, which I thought was a really interesting sort of spin on things. I thought it was kind of cool, and I don't know if that was something they meant to put in the anime and just cut because of time constraints or budget constraints or whatever, but it makes a lot of sense in this story. I think that it's like the fact that they threw that little tidbit in there, and it only takes like 5 seconds to describe that. The fact that they threw that in there makes that whole bit of Kaoru being, one of the new pilots, one of the children, if you will. It makes a lot more sense, I think at least. Now, the other thing that I mentioned at the beginning there was that artwork of Kaji when he was younger. There's this little bit at the beginning that talks about what Kaji went through after the second impact. We talked in both the anime and the earlier volumes of this manga adaptation, or I didn't talk about it rather, but it's explained, how Misato experienced the second impact, and Kaji's story is a little dissimilar, but a little different at the same time. He sort of has to scavenge for himself. He has to provide for other people, and we get to see just how dark and desperate things were back then. The thing with Misato's story in both the anime and the manga adaptation and the new films is that it sort of just implied she remembers something happening, she remembers the world going to crap, but she didn't see it directly happen, I guess. Basically her dad just seals her in the little entry plug or whatever early version of that they had at the time, and she survives the explosion at the impact site. But she doesn't see the world go to crap, or at least we don't see her seeing the world go to crap. Here with Kaji, we get to see things after the fallout. We get to see how he sort of has to take up this mantle of responsibility, how he has to behave and get by. And it's really cool to see this sort of almost post-apocalyptic world. I mean, the whole setting of Evangelion is kind of post-apocalyptic anyways, but it's a lot more barren in that portion of the story. And it's really cool just to see something different there. And now that I've read that, I really wish that they would have put that in the other versions of Evangelion, because it's really cool. It's really just very informative little tidbit that does a lot for the story. Much like with the previous volumes, you do get some little glossary info in the back here, and sound effects and stuff that you don't have in English that are sort of trademark of just manga in general. They like to do that a lot, where there's sound effects you wouldn't think of, because Japanese have some just weird sound effects that we don't, or don't have an equivalent for in English. There's also a lot of these little Secrets of Evangelion sort of literary analysis bits in here. And these are really cool, especially for such an Eva junkie like me, where I just sort of like to overanalyze this story and all of its underlying themes and stylistic presentation and all that. So here we have, towards the back more, an explanation of the Marduk Agency, which is the selection process for all the children in the anime and the manga, and then the role of government and the different groups in power in Evangelion, even though they really don't hold that much sway in the long run, because Nerve and Seele sort of do what they want anyways. But it is kind of cool just to see that they paid a little bit of attention to that and threw that in there just so, someone who's sort of just jumping into this for the first time, like, if this manga adaptation is your first experience with Evangelion, you know that you can follow along here in this 3-in-1 volume and, like, get all the information that you need to without having to go search some obscure website that's, filled with people who have been following Eva for years and know it like the back of their hand. That it's just a lot more accessible here. And I think that's pretty cool. Also, you have sort of the Secrets of Evangelion, like the ties to actual religious references and stuff like that, which is really cool. And I wish actually more manga series would do that sort of thing and give you more of like the necessary information or even the unnecessary information. Just cool tidbits here. I really like that, and it's something that I think sets Evangelion apart from any other anime or manga or science fiction story in general. It's just like how deeply rooted this is in sort of the Judeo-Christian symbolism, this Freudian psychology aspect, and the way the storytelling is presented. It's just very different. There's really nothing else like it. It's one of those things where it's like often imitated but never replicated sort of thing. And I think it's great that this 3-in-1 collection has those included in there. I don't believe the old individual volumes had that sort of thing. And so it would have been really easy for Viz to just go ahead and be like, you know what, we're just going to compile those volumes into one thing and sell it again at a little higher price point because you're getting 3-in-1. But they actually went to the trouble of putting these extra little additional bits in there, which I think is great. I'd really like to see more companies do that sort of a thing. Like I said, not just with Evangelion, but more series in general. I think it goes a long way in showing that you actually care about what, the quality of a product you're putting out, and also the ability for your reader base to find this accessible, the story interesting and accessible. So I highly recommend this manga adaptation. I mean, I don't read manga myself that much. Like you've probably seen in my previous reviews, I've done Evangelion and Evangelion spin-offs and Legend of Zelda stuff. And that's basically the extent of my manga collection. I have a couple other ones here and there, odd issues, but this is not just because I love Evangelion so much. I mean, I do. It's my favorite anime and favorite TV show of all time. Like Eva and Lost are my two favorites, and I don't hardly ever watch live-action TV, so most of my television experiences come from anime. But, at least nowadays I do. But this is just because it's such a well-done version of the story, such a well-done quality product here that you're getting. I think the anime will always be the definitive version for me. Not just because it's the first one I watched, but because it's the version that was sort of how they intended to do it. And it's in these later volumes of this manga adaptation, everything that follows from here on out, basically, is where things start to deviate, and you had these weird gaps of time before the publishers finally got back on track with stuff. So when I do the review of the next volume, you'll sort of see how things take on a little bit of a different presentation. It's not drastic, but it's not the same sort of consistency that the original anime series had. So, like I said, though, I really highly recommend this if you're a fan of Eva, or you don't know that much about it and want to try your hand at the manga adaptation. I say go for it. These are pretty inexpensive, actually, if you try and find them online. The individual price for them, I think, is supposed to be like $20, but I got these for like $9 a piece on Amazon. So you can find them cheap. It's not that hard. And they're all in print right now because these are the latest versions. So that's pretty much it for this review. Went on a little longer than I thought, but I just decided to gush for a while about how great I think this adaptation is. And with that, I will see you guys next time.